What's up guys, Chaz here. If you're new to my channel, I basically teach you photography tips so you can better your photography. If you could do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button, it really helps the channel grow, and that way I'll be able to continue to make content for you guys. If you'd like to take a look at my work, I have Instagram. My Instagram name is Seeing Visuals. I'll leave a link down in the description below for you. Today we'll be talking about face retouching. I've done a face retouching video before using frequency separation. Instead, this one's a little bit more of an update. We're going to be using the mixer brush with this one, and that way you can maintain the details in the model's face. All right, so stay tuned. All right, so let's get started. I've already done retouching on this photo, but I'm going to go ahead and delete all these layers, and I'm going to show you how to do this from scratch. My recommendation is after you finish this, or when you start using frequency separation, my recommendation is so you make an action, so that way you won't have to keep going on and doing this. It'll really save you some time. So let's hop right in here. I'm going to hit Command J, and I'm going to duplicate that layer twice, and I'm going to go ahead and change these names. This top one is going to be texture, and this layer right here is going to be, I usually call it color. And what you want to do is you want to turn off the texture layer, so you hit this button right here, and then you go to the color layer, and from there you want to go to filter and noise, and I use dust and scratches. And typically I'll put that at 0, or actually we'll have it at 1. So at 1, if you look at this little preview here, you can see the pores and the details, and right now it's like an unblurred image. So what I typically do is zoom in until you can't see the pores, until the skin's a little smooth. So I would say 5 is a good example. So then I hit OK. And then after that, you can go back to your texture layer, turn that back on, and then with your texture layer selected, go to Image, Apply Image, and typically this may be inverted or may not be, but what you want to do is when you start, this will say merged. So you want to hit the color layer, and then you want to make sure that this is on add. If you have a 16-bit image, you want to make sure that this is on add, and then the scale would be 2, offset 0, opacity 100. You keep these unmarked, and then you can invert that layer, and then also your channel's RGB. So invert that layer, hit OK, and you want to change this blending mode to linear light. And so now you can see how the picture looks beforehand, how it was when you originally started. And what I do is I'll group these together. So Command G, and then let's call this retouch. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add, basically I would call it an aid layer. This will help you be able to see the differences in the skin. Right now you can kind of see the different colors in her skin. The whole point of going to the gray layer is so you can see where these color changes here are. Like right here you can see it, but when you add this color layer, it'll definitely help you be able to see that more clearly. So hit solid color, and you want to make sure that the white part is selected up here, and you're going to change this B to 50, or you can just put 80, 80, 80 down here. Hit OK, and then I'm going to switch this to color so you can see the image. Now it's like a black and white image, you can see. And so I'm going to do one more thing on this part, and I'm going to click curves, and you want to bring this down a little bit. This will add a little bit more contrast to the photo, so that way you can see these changes even more. So then we'll group these together, and then you can call this aid. So there we go. And so typically the first thing I like to do is take off anything that's not supposed to be there, that's not normally there. So like say maybe her skin had a little bit more breakouts than normal on this day. So that's something that you would like to remove. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the clone stamp tool and then make sure you have the texture layer selected, opacity 100, flow 100, and on current layer. And what we're going to do is basically copy texture and get rid of these irritations on the skin. You want to make sure that you copy somewhere pretty close to the original piece of skin that you're copying, so that way you can kind of keep the same consistency. Because let's say for instance I'm picking there and I'm clicking something there, obviously it's a different type of texture, so I'm going to Command Z that to put that back. And so I'm going to go and clean up these little areas. And typically when I'm doing this, I want to hit copy it and hit it one time. Copy it, hit it one time. So I'm just taking out all the distractions that take away from the original picture. And then also, you can also use this to get rid of flyaways. And same kind of thing where you select the texture around. So I'll go here and I'll copy that. And then here, you kind of just hold them. If you have a mouse, click the area and kind of just get rid of those little strays that you don't want in there. Sometimes this will leave small little pieces of hair, like you could still see where it was, like you'll see the color there. And but it doesn't matter, it's okay. You can fix that once you start blending in the colors. So I'm going to take away as much of those distractions and those flyaways hairs as possible. So after I've done all that, I kind of zoom out of the image, and this is where I'll start to color. And so you go to your color tab, and for your brush, you want to make sure that you have the mixer brush tool selected and have your settings as the following up here. So the wet 24, load 30%, mix 30%, flow 24, and then this 10%. And so once you have your mixer brush selected, and that's when you can start blending in the colors. So I have a tablet, so I just use a pen. It's really easy. You can do this with a mouse, but the pen just makes it a little bit more easier. And my goal is with the skin is to blend in these differences in skin to where you can obviously tell the colors are off. And you want to blend those in so you can get a solid, nice and clean look. But you also kind of want to remember where you can see right here where the shadow, it's a little darker right here, and then here it's a light. So this is where the light is hitting her face, and then this is like where it's shadow. You want to kind of keep in mind that if you remove some of these shadows, you kind of flatten out the image. So you want to be careful not to flatten out your entire image and take away the shadows that you actually need. And you also want to make sure when you're cleaning up the face to not remove shadows that shake the model's face or will change the look. So I'm going to get started with this. And so, as you can see, I'm just kind of like blending in the colors together, so it's a little bit more even. And I typically, if it's your first time doing this, I would recommend going a little slower. So for instance, if you have a darker spot and it's surrounded by a lot of light areas, you want to go ahead and blend that in. You want to blend the darker spot to the lighter areas. If you have a lighter spot and it's surrounded by dark, you want to go ahead and blend those darker areas and cover that lighter spot. This is basically all just evening the skin tone, so you'll have a more uniform look. And then adjust your brush size accordingly. So for smaller areas like this, of course, you want to make it smaller so you don't mix too much in. And then keep in mind if you go a little over, like say you put a little color where you don't want to, you can always Command Z it or undo it and go back and fix it. So what I usually like to do too is kind of zoom out to make sure that everything's looking okay. And then the point of grouping your aid layer here is so you can just also mark that off and see how it looks in regular color. So this just want to make sure that it's not taking away too much from the image. And so basically what this frequency separation layer is doing is you have two layers. You have the texture layer and then you have the color layer. The texture layer is where the actual skin is, like the pores, the top of the skin. And when we first started and we were cleaning up those inconsistencies, like the bumps on her face and everything, that is just taking away from the top layer, just where the pores are. It's just basically copying that skin texture, those pores, and putting it in another spot that you desire. And what the color layer will do is basically, you would think of it as basically it's just removing everything under the texture layer. So all the light, the colors, everything else, that's what the color layer adjusts and fixes. So it just separates the two so you can work on them separately. So here are her eyes. So I'm just basically, they're a little darker right here. So all I do is just basically push the slide and the color up to kind of make it a little bit more even with the rest of her face and take those dark circles off. So then and zoom out of your image so you can see what you're doing. Check the aid. And then occasionally too, I'll kind of click this on and off so I can see what I've changed and to make sure that I'm still in line with how her face looks and then I haven't like altered her entire look. Because sometimes when you're in here really close, you can kind of lose track of the normal shadows that you kind of started with. And this is really, as much as you want to blend in, this is really kind of personal preference, how you really want your photo to look. But this is the least destructive way I can think of to kind of clean the face where you're not making the model look super plastic. Because here you can still see the pores and everything. So that's the main goal, is to try to make this look as natural as possible and to keep the skin texture. And occasionally I'll turn the aid layer off so I can just kind of blend it in just a little bit more. So go to the cheeks. And so the cheeks are one area that you kind of want to be careful with, because if you take some shadows away, it'll change the entire model's face. And you want to keep that natural look, especially around the mouth area too. Kind of use your discretion on how much shadows you change when you're in this area. And just be mindful, some that you take away will completely change the look. Like I'd always keep this there, and I try not to go over these areas because that's the side of her mouth. So I'll just barely get in there. And so this is where, like, you see the pressure on her cheek. So if I were to remove all this, I'll just show you an example of you messing up the model's face. So there it basically takes away the shadows, so where she would press her cheek, just makes it look a little bit more unnatural in my opinion. So I just like to really stay within the colors that are already there and just blend in and not try to move too much. I want to keep a natural look as possible. So let's zoom out and see what we have so far. And so as you can see, so this is what I've done so far, and you can already see the changes. I want to make her skin even, and that'll take away more distractions, and so you can keep the beauty in the image that you originally planned. So let's take off the aid. So I kind of look around to see, is everything looking the way I want to? I'm going to go ahead and kind of blend in a little bit more on the side of her cheek. And once you do this enough times, then it doesn't take too long to do. It's probably the fastest way that I think that you can do retouching and still be able to keep the good details in. And then as well, I like to go to the lips and kind of make that an even color. So let's see what we have. So there we go. So this is before, after, before, after. Normally I might do a little bit more details in here and get really in there and just make sure that everything is the way I like it. Again, it's up to your discretion and what you would like to do. My main goal is to keep the roundness, natural curves in the face, and keep the natural light where it needs to be, like where it hits her face and where it shadows. And then as well, like after you're done, if you find that your images will obviously take a little bit of the curves out, because some you may have smoothed out, and that's when I do the dodging and burning to bring the shape back in her face. But for the most part, you can kind of keep the shape, just as long as you are not blending shadows and blending the light too harshly. Just make sure that you keep a steady hand and take it slow, and then you'll do just fine. So alright, That's what I typically do as far as retouching. Um, the more you, like I said, the more you do it, the faster you'll get, and the easier it'll become. It'll be second nature to you. All right, thanks for watching. Um, Comment something you like. Maybe there's something you'd like me to go a little bit more detail in. Just let me know. And that's it. Thank you for watching.